Look at the Kel Tec PF9. This has been introduced in 2006, and at that time it was the lightest, flattest 9mm made. A very handy, great concealable 9mm handgun pistol. Now, Kel Tec started making firearms here in the U.S. in 1995, and it was owned by George Kellgren, who is a Swedish gun designer. Started out making the Husqvarna, also Intratec, and then the old Grendel, which this reminds me a lot of the Grendel. There was a number of guns that was back in the 90s. Then went to the Kel Tec. And Kel Tec now, according to the ATF, is the third largest gun manufacturer in the United States. They're very reasonably priced. They fit well with the concealed carry handgun market. And they're reliable, accurate, and just a nice quality pistol for the price. The PF9 only comes with one magazine, and it comes with this flat base. They do give you the finger groove magazine as well, but of course I always recommend having more than one magazine for your pistol. Of course, you get a nice instruction manual as well, and very nice little box. Good solid lockup. Kel Tec makes many calibers. This is the 9mm. There are larger 9mm from Kel Tec. We're not going to go into all that. This is a Parkerized slide version. They do make it in the blued, and they do make a chrome satin finish slide as well. Frame is a polymer. Very nice, smooth grip. In fact, on the PF9, it is super thin, and you can tell it when you grip it. In fact, I did some measurements here, and it was around 3/4 of an inch, the grip. Now, the slide itself, they say, is 0.88 inches. So this is a super thin, very comfortable to carry. Of course, the first thing we want to do is make sure that the gun is unloaded. This is a 7-in-1, 7 in the magazine, of course 1 in the chamber. The weight on it is 12.7 ounces, so it's very lightweight. Mag weight is 5.5 ounces, so you really have something that you can comfortably carry in a concealed carry option. The barrel is just over 3 inches, 3.1 inches. There are no external safeties, as you can see. It is a double action only pistol. This is not a striker fire. And if you'll notice, the trigger comes way up, and as you pull it, you can see the hammer. And that's the reason why there are no external safeties. You don't really need it. It's a lot like a double action revolver. The trigger itself is very smooth. In fact, very pleasantly. It is a long trigger pull, but it is very smooth, and then it has a good solid break. You will notice though that the trigger comes really close up to the trigger guard, and it makes it a little bit difficult just to bring that finger in. I have pretty medium-sized to small hands, so even for me, I noticed while shooting that it was a little difficult sometimes to get my finger. I think with a gloved hand it may even be, of course it will be, a little more difficult, but still very doable, and it can slide in. The trigger pull itself, they say it's about a 5-pound trigger pull. I think it's a little heavier than that. On the P11, it's a 9-pound trigger pull. I'm not really sure why the difference, but the 5-pound trigger pull, or the lighter trigger pull, to me gives you a little better, especially with your follow-up shots, with accuracy. Now, speaking of trigger pull, I'm going to go through and just show you. You're pulling it through, it's got some tension, and then you have your snap. Now, we're going to look at reset. Reset is 2-stage. Here's the first one. Now with the first one, you're not getting any motion. You have to go to the second. And really, you just have a very small upper travel. So reset is not going to be a real advantage on this gun. It is rated for +P, but limited use. You don't want to continually use +P in this gun. The grip is thin, the weight is small, so the recoil is what it is. It's just a little snappy. But to be honest with you, I fired about 100 rounds through this, and it does wear right here on your hand. But this gun is really not made to go out and just enjoy a day at the range. This is really made for training with, obviously, but mainly for concealed carry and just getting off those few rounds. That's obviously why they have the 7-round magazine. Does have an accessory rail with one notch. The finger pad does add a lot to the grip. Without it, you're kind of hanging off a little bit, and with the snappy recoil, it's very doable. You need to train with that, but this little finger groove really adds. The grip itself has large square pads. There's some grooves here on the back, on the front. It's not very aggressive, but you still can get a good grip on the pistol. Mag release right here on the frame, excellent place. It is a little quick to release. I didn't have any issues whatsoever. I've seen some where they've inadvertently released the magazine, but I didn't have any problems with it. As you can see, slide stop here. The barrel does tilt up. The first time I shot a Kel Tec, I thought something might have been wrong with the pistol because the guide rod also kicks up. But this is normal, and this is the way this breech lockup system. That's pretty decent. 3-dot sights, and there is actually an adjustment for elevation. Of course, windage, you can go right to left. Now, because this is a concealed carry option, I'm going to give you some of the dimensions, which a lot of times I don't. But the total length is just under 6 inches, 5.85 inches. The height is 4.3 inches. And of course, I've already stated the width is 0.88 inches. Excellent, very small, very thin. This is very similar in design to the P11. In fact, it's pretty much based on the P11. The only difference is of course you have a double stack magazine in the P11, single stack here, so you have a little more of a comfortable ergonomic grip, unless you have big hands. Now I'm getting ready to take this out to do some shooting, and the mag release is very nice. One of the things I want to just mention, and I've seen this in a couple of videos, is while shooting this gun, some of the shooters inadvertently release the magazine. And in fact, it happened a number of times. So I'm going to check it out and see, you know, what's going on with that. One of those shooters was Hickok 45. But if you know anything about Hickok, he is 6'8", and I met him at up in Tennessee last summer, and just an awesome guy. And he has big hands. But we're going to check out and see how viable that is. Now the magazine is all steel, and one of the things I want to demonstrate, because I've heard this a number of times, is loading a magazine, how easy it is. And this magazine actually is pretty good quality. It's very smooth. The shells fit in very nicely. So I think we've got a quality magazine here. Of course, loading it into the bottom. Got a little bit tight fit. I think they could have actually rounded off a little bit of this, but not too bad. Make sure you hear that click. The brass itself came out pretty clean. It usually landed in a group behind the shooter on the right hand side. I will say that there seemed to be on every one just a little bit of a scuff right here, but really the brass is very reloadable after you shoot, if you're shooting brass ammo. You do need a brass case to break this down, or something similar. And you bring the gun all the way back. Of course, you double check to make sure it is unloaded. Right here is your takedown lever, and you can take a piece of brass and just pull that lever out. This is your barrel link, so it pulls right out. Then slowly release the slide, and it comes right off. Of course, your recoil spring pulls straight out. Bring your barrel out. One thing to really note are the rails, and unlike a lot of the polymer frame pistols, this has a solid rail that runs all the way down, and actually comes under, is reinforced here, and then comes up here. So this is one solid piece that fits down into the pistol, and I find that has a lot of strength to it. And a lot of times, you know, I have Glocks and they have two small rails here and here. Of course, there's an excellent lockup, excellent quality, but this even gives you a little more surface. Of course, reassembly is just a reverse action. There's a little notch where it goes in. Pull it all the way back. You want to make sure that the barrel does not ride back. Sometimes the barrel will ride into the slide, and it won't function that way. So you make sure the barrel is in place. Drop in, make the snap, then release. Then make sure that you have your firing pin in place by pulling the trigger. The Kel Tec PF9 runs under the $250 mark. So I think you're going to be able to find this a very quality pistol for your budget, and I highly advise you to spend the extra money on ammunition and extra magazines. The Kel Tec PF9 is an excellent pistol for the money, and it doesn't have all the refinements of some of the more higher end smaller pistols, but it's accurate, it's reliable, and it just works. This is a great option for concealed carry with the how thin it is, but you know, this is great for a beginner gun as well. As always, thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more fun gun reviews and sensible survival. God bless America. Long live the Republic. You can see it's just a group. A lot of this has to do with the recoil. It is a little bit snappy, and with double action all the way through, about 3 inches. And this is about 15 yards. You need a brass case though, and this is part of why I'm showing the brass. And one of the things I'd like to show is how easy it is to load. A lot of times, the weight on it is 12.7 ounces. So